Now, for more on that attack that I mentioned just before, of course, that killed the chief negotiator there in Afghanistan, Professor Greg Barton from Monash University's Global Terrorism Research Centre joins us now. Greg Barton, always good to see you. Good morning.
Good to see you, Virginia. Michael.
The timing of this attack can't be exaggerated. It was when President Hamid Karzai was meeting President Barack Obama in New York at this important UN meeting. This is when those Taliban negotiators decide to blow themselves and also the chief negotiator up.
That's right, and it's in the wake, a week ago, of course, of an attack on the US Embassy compound. The death of President Karzai's brother was only a few months ago in July, so yeah, it's a very tough time, isn't it?
A bit of context here. How pivotal a figure was Rabbani?
Well, he was the great hope for these peace negotiations. He was a Mujahideen leader through the 1980s against the Soviets. He was president from 92 to 96. He was an ethnic Tajik, unlike most of the Taliban who are Pashtun, but he was a religious conservative, so perhaps the guy who could, broker a middle path.
But this is a message that the Taliban want to send not only to Hamid Karzai, but to the world, to US forces, to international forces, to the lot, that what you're doing here isn't working. Get out.
And it's a fairly powerful message at the moment, isn't it? But
well, it is, and that refers to my original observation about the timing. Just to get you to reflect on that, I mean, when I say it can't be exaggerated, they're being as forceful as they possibly can now in saying, we will not submit.
They are, but they are one element of the Taliban, presumably. The Taliban are not a monolith, and the Taliban elements who don't want peace are certainly pushing very hard. They're trying to spoil. This is a spoiling move. And they're likely backed by some elements in Pakistan, so it's a complex story. So
why is it then that the Taliban elements that do want peace, why weren't they in that peace negotiation? Why was it this other element?
Well, that's the devil's in the detail, isn't it? Trying to figure out who your friends are and who can be trusted and who might have turned at the last moment. The assassin in this case wasn't scanned. He wasn't wanted as he came through the compound, a sign of trust. He was a trusted envoy. That was clearly a mistake, and that just shows how tricky it is to figure out who you can trust in these negotiations. It doesn't mean that the idea of negotiation is silly. It just means it's very, very hard.
Therefore, do Western authorities have every reason now to be distrustful of the Taliban generally when it comes to possible negotiations?
Well, I think what it reinforces is that you just have to go in this with a very tight security protocol and say, we want to build trust, but everyone has to be checked, everyone has to be wanted. We don't know who's behind what, we don't know who's under what pressure, and so it just has to proceed in that very transparent fashion.
Greg Barton, in your analysis, do you believe that negotiation with the Taliban in Afghanistan is still a useful and fruitful thing to pursue?
It's a tough thing, it may not work, but there aren't many other better options. I mean, with Europe and the US teetering on the edge of recession, 10 years of fatigue with the conflict in Afghanistan, there's not the will for larger troop numbers. We've squandered the opportunity we probably had some years ago to really do a better job of rebuilding Afghanistan. This is the least of a bunch of bad options, least worst option.
What more can President Karzai be doing to help facilitate either negotiations or hopefully some sort of a peace deal somewhere down the track?
Look, it's difficult to know what more he can do. His own position is he has a major problem with legitimacy. That's not easily turned around. It's a pretty tough neighbourhood, to be fair to him. I think one thing that has to be improved is security. The fact that we've had 2 attacks within the most secure part of Kabul, the most secure part of Afghanistan, the last week, speaks to the fact that the Afghani security, who are in charge of Kabul, haven't got their act together yet.
Are they compromised, though, potentially?
They possibly are in parts. I mean, almost certainly some elements are compromised. I think it's probably more the case that they just haven't got their protocols working. They should be checking at anyone, regardless of concern for honour and respect and so on. They just have to have a standard protocol in place.
Are there questions to be asked this morning here about Pakistan?
There certainly are. It would be... We know that historically there are elements within Pakistan, particularly within the Inter-Services Intelligence Directorate, the ISI, who have backed elements of Taliban in both Pakistan and Afghanistan. They would like Afghanistan to be a proxy state under Taliban control, Taliban loyal to them. Of course, one of their big concerns is India. It's part of the sort of crazy logic of the region. So if we did nothing and just pulled out of Afghanistan, the danger is we would have a Taliban-controlled Afghanistan as a proxy state of Pakistan, and a Pakistan not in good health, not controlled by a strong civilian government. Is
there particular analysis to be done there between perhaps a nexus, some sort of link between those elements in Pakistan we were talking about, the ISI and the like, and those who are supposed to provide the security in Afghanistan? Could there be a corruption element there?
Look, you can be certain that those who are backing the more militant and more extreme elements of the Taliban in Afghanistan, those with the strongest links with Pakistan, are doing everything they can to spoil this, including the assassination, just in these last 24 hours, but also infiltrating, buying people off. There's a lot of money washing around the region, so the power to corrupt people is enormous.
And just finally, Greg Barton, this morning, what do you imagine happens next? Is there some form of a pushback or a response from either the international forces in Afghanistan or the Afghanistan Authority itself? I
think the best thing they can do is just proceed with confidence, hard as that sounds, but be very, very careful about their security so nothing like this happens again as best they can ensure, because they don't have any other good options. If they give up on this, then Pakistan just slides into a horrible, Afghanistan slides into a horrible morass, along with presumably Pakistan, that's also so weak. Negotiating with more peaceful elements of the Taliban in Afghanistan is the best strategy, but it's terribly difficult to do.
Greg Barton, always good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.